Test 1 1. Test 1 1.
Morning.
Hey there.
Hi. What's up?
Life is good.
Yeah. I finally figured out how to do it live.
Hmm?
Finally figured out how I can get on the Zoom. I couldn't figure out how do you get on the Zoom,
It's
Anyway,
the same as
I
Torah
know,
study.
but yesterday I couldn't get on the Zoom.
No, yesterday you can't get on the Zoom.
Oh, I thought, okay. All right.
No, yesterday, Friday nights is just YouTube Live. Because it's a bigger crowd and I don't want to deal with people
No, I don't blame you.
zooming in.
It was lovely. It was really nice yesterday.
Yeah, it was great. We had like 60 people here.
That's awesome. I saw that. I could see there was a number of people.
Yep.
That's great.
Today it's just you and me so far.
I can see that, and it's almost 10 o'clock.
Well,
Well, there might be people on YouTube. I don't know.
nope.
No? Whoops. It's a nice day. I don't know. Cold, but
Yeah, no, so far. Well,
it's sunny, so maybe they're out taking advantage of the day.
right?
Whirling get in okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she got in about 9 o'clock. We had dinner. It was nice.
Awesome. That was
Oh,
good.
I think I hear people.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Shabbat shalom, Luba.
Your sound is off.
We'll get there.
Not watching.
Well, we have to, I ended up, of course, being the other person to hold it while they folded the flag. And then often so often it would be the two funeral directors would fold the flag.
I've never seen that before.
And then one of the funeral directors was a veteran, so he presented it to the families. Yeah. So let's see, online we've got Liliana and Luba. And then here we have Craig and Ali and Corlin and Pam. So we'll see. Everybody can hear okay?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Hang on.
So we'll begin on page 68. Moda'ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shechazarta binishmati bechemla bechemla rabba emunatecha Rabba emunatecha. I'm not getting audio. Why am I not getting audio? Can you hear?
I can hear it.
That's interesting. Oh, there we go. Okay. I just like to occasionally check audio when I'm doing it alone.
Your computer is silent. It says Rabbi Rob is silent, and so is Luba.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. Page 70. Hine matavu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matavu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. And welcome, Carly. Is this like your first outing? That is awesome. Now I know why the moms come to temple. It's reprieve.
Yes.
I can imagine, I gotta go pray. It's hard to say no to that, right? It's not like I'm going to meet the guys for a beer, That's good. Well, wonderful to have you all. And page 74, Matovu ohelecha Yaakov, how beautiful these tents are, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And there's an interesting connection to this week's Torah portion, because in this week, and we'll talk a little bit more later, but we have Jacob who finds himself on the top of the mountain alone. And he goes through this sort of awareness revelation in which he comes to realize the presence of God in his life. And the idea of being in a mishkan, of a tent or a dwelling place, is also the word that we use for a sacred space. So, as we think about the ohel throughout history has had different meanings. It can be a place to live. Abraham welcomes guests into his ohel. Isaac is comforted after the death of his mother, when he creates a family again with his beloved Rebekah in his mother's Ohel. And it is under the Ohel Moed, or the tent of meeting, that we come together and create what we know as the people of Israel. And so tents and temporary spaces are endemic to Jewish tradition, and we have throughout time used that. There is nothing that is sacred about a space. The only thing that is sacred about a space are the people who are in it. So, unlike other faiths that consecrate spaces and buildings, we may dedicate a space. We may make it beautiful, but it's only a space until we have people in it. And over the last, several years, a couple years now, we've been challenged with how to create that space even when we're not physically in that space. And so, again, we are challenged to create an ohel that transcends the physicality of space and yet encompasses a sense of community. And we do that with our live stream connections, and now we have this hybrid model where some people are here and some people are online, and yet we are all under that same sense of ohel, that same sense of that big tent of connection and community for us. So let's join together. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Page 194. So we join in our blessing, which thanks God for our beings, our souls, Baruch atah, our physical being, and then the next prayer we'll do is the prayer for our souls, combining them so that we thank God for all aspects of our lives. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah uvaravo nikavim chalulim chalulim galui v'yadua lifnei chisei chevodecha she'im yefatech achad mehem o yisatem achad mehem אי-אפשר להתקיים לעמוד לפניך ברוך אתה אדוני רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. And on page 78, we join in our blessing for our souls. Elohai neshama shenatata bi Torah hi. Ata vrata, ata yitzarta, ata nafachta bi. Va'ata mishamra b'kirbi. Kol zman shneshama b'kirbi. Modeh ani lefanecha, Adonai Elohei v'Elohei avotai v'imotai. Ribon kol hama'asim, madon kol haneshamot. Baruch ata Adonai. Asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. On page 80, we join in our one-line blessings that thank God for our daily experiences. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sachvi vina lahavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam anoten layaev koach. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'afapai. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani b'tselem Elohim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani Yisrael. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvuraha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael betifaraha. And our blessing for study at the top of page 86. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Let's join together in the middle of, or in the bottom of page 86. Adonai our God, let the words of your Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamed Torah la'amo Yisrael. Page 94. Baruch Shamar v'haya haolam baruch hu. Blessed is the one who spoke, and the world came to be. Blessed is the one. Together. Blessed is the one who continually authors creation. Blessed is the one whose word is deed. Blessed is the one who decrees and fulfills. Blessed is the one who is compassionate towards the world. Blessed is the one who is compassionate towards all creatures. Blessed is the one who rewards the reverent. Blessed is the one who exists for all time, ever enduring. Blessed is the one who redeems and saves. Blessed is God's name. With songs of praise we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler, your name is eternal. Baruch atah Adonai, melech mehulal batishbachot. Page 96.
Tickling my nose. The mask is tickling my nose and making me sneeze.
Yes. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot lahadonai, ulezamer leshimcha elyon, lezamer leshimcha elyon, lahagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatcha balelot, עלי אסור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. Pam, do you want to lead Ashrei?
I'll kind of fake my way through it.
Okay, come on up.
Tehillah LaDavid, Aramimcha El Chaycha Melech, ויחבך שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך, והללה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומכולה מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר.
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
הדר כבוד הודיך, ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
בעזוז נורותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
זכר רב טובך יביעו, וזדקתך ירננו.
חנון ורחום ארוני, ערך אפיים גדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
ידוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותו יאמרו, וגבורתיו ידברו.
להודיע לבדם האדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, זוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אכלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידיך ומסביר לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוריו, לכל אשר יגרו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע וירשיין.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהב, את כל רשעים ישמיד.
תהילה אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קדשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah.
יישר כוח.
Thank you. That was fun.
Page 100. Hallelujah, 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 El Bikodsho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Brakia Uzo. Hallelujah, 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 Bigvurotav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kerov Gudlo. Hallelujah, 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 bete kashofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah, benevel v'chinor. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, betof umachol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, beminim v'ugav. Hallelujah, 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 betzil tzalei shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betzilei trua. Kol hanshamate hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Page 105. Yishtabach shimcha le'ahad malkeinu. You shall always be praised, great and holy God, our sovereign in heaven and on earth. Songs of praise and psalms of adoration become you, acknowledging your might and your dominion. Yours are strength and sovereignty, sanctity, grandeur, and glory, always. We offer our devotion, open our hearts in acclamation. We rise together for Chatzi Kaddish on page 106. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Bi'alma divrach rutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala, bagala, uvizman ka'ariv, v'yimeru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach, le'alam ulal me'olam haya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpahar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei d'kurisha, b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shihirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, dahamihiran bi'alma, v'yimeru, amen. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated, and we continue with Yotzer Or, page 110. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Yotzer Or Uvorei Choshech Oseh Shalom Uvorei Et Hakol Hameir La'aretz V'ladarim Aleha Brachamim Uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma'rabu ma'asecha Adonai. Kulam b'chochma asita mala ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha. Ve'al me'orei or sha'asita yifa'arucha sela. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir. V'nizche chulanu mehera le'or'o. Baruch Atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Down page 113, let's join together in the middle of the page. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. A light blinded. We saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch Atah Adonai, Habocher Ba'amo Yisrael, B'Yahava. As we rise for Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated as we continue. Ve'ahavta, page 116. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, bechol levavcha vechol nafshecha, ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך, היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Page 117. Let's join together, top of the page. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we put our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives, and we can begin to change the world. And then you live in our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. Page 121. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else. May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exalt in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, or in war any more. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asks God. We know the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing. We join in our Song of Freedom, page 122. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, oh seifele, oh seifele. שירה חדשה שיבחו גלים לשמך שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובטחנו ממך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. Page 124, we rise for Amidah. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi agidti latecha. Eternal our God, open our lips, that our mouths may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדו מלך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך. וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אלוהינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם. אלוהייך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please be seated as we continue on page 132. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Page 139. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations, modim anachnu lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, modim anachnu lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, for oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression. Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom. Modim anachnu lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose. Modim anachnu lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace and its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul. And may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We take a few moments for silent prayer. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. And on page 253, we join in our blessing of healing, and we think of all those who continue to struggle with COVID-19, their families, their caregivers, and all those who need a blessing of healing, and we can send that energy out to the world and to those who need it. And we especially think of Greg Bennett and Michael Byron, Scott Gordon, Rebecca Gottlieb, Phyllis Levin, Jacob Adams, Pat Hanna, Irene Shevitskaya, Marilyn Weinecke, Zachary Jackson, Bruce Harrell, Gary Shapira, Andrea Kempner Blake, the Rodland family, Terry Harris, Jerry Penn, Frank Frusaro, Matt Porter, Matea Press, Joe Riley, Joseph Passetner, Edie Francis, Fran Porras, Jim McKen, Sheila Cohn, and Edna Fritz. And if you are joining us via live stream and have a name that you would like to add, if you're on Zoom, you can say that name, and if you're on YouTube, you can put the name into the chat box. If you're here in person, please share that name. And so we join in our blessing of healing. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu, Makor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. So this week in our Parsha, we begin what will ultimately be or continue the series of Jacob sagas, right? We had the first part of it last week with the drama between the brothers, and here we find Jacob beginning a journey. And Jacob finds himself journeying many times throughout his life, actually. And each journey is transformational, which I think is true. I think anytime you make a significant journey, you experience new things, it transforms you. You look at the world differently. If you've ever been to a developing country, you can certainly now appreciate the gifts that we have in this country. Although I suppose every country is developing in that way. But, Jacob finds himself on the top of this mountain in the middle of this journey, and it's actually not the only time he'll find himself on the top of a mountain. He'll do it again a little later in his life. But this time, he finds himself on this mountain, and there is a ladder. And he dreams of this ladder. And the ladder is filled with angels. And the angels are going up the ladder and down the ladder. And the Rashi especially poses the question, why are the angels going up the ladder first? Where do angels come from? God, which means that they should be coming down the ladder first. Right? They should be coming down the ladder, doing their job, because angels are essentially the drones of God, and they have a job, right? They have one job that they do. They don't make decisions for themselves. They don't decide to veer off and go do this and that, whatever. Angels have a job, and they fulfill that role, and then they're supposed to return. And yet, the text talks about Jacob seeing these angels going up and down the ladder, and says, what's going on? And some of the commentaries kind of relate to that and say, well, it's a recognition that these angels, these messages of God, are around us all the time. And we're just not aware of them. And we have to kind of plug in. And it's at this moment when Jacob awakens from this dream and realizes that all of these angels are around him all the time, and all he has to do is pay attention. All he has to do is pay attention. And he'll receive those insights and those messages, and that will help guide him. And so he wakes up and he says, Achen yesh. Achen yesh. Wow. Wow. Here is Adonai. Achen yesh Adonai. B'makom hazeh, in this particular place. God's here, right here. Va'anochi lo yadati, but I had no idea. God's with me. God's here. But I had no clue. And I think that is powerful words. The sense of companionship, the sense of walking through life and the world together with God, and feeling God's presence around us and being aware of God's gifts as we walk the path of life. And sometimes it's little, you see beautiful trees and nature. There's nothing more beautiful than fall, except maybe perhaps spring, but there is something fabulous about fall and the leaves and the color changes and the panorama of colors that the leaves go through. And you often wonder why, right? Like why the vibrant reds? And I mean, we know the chemical reasons why. But why is that the design? Why is that the design to be so impressive? I think it's one of these moments that makes us achen yesh, say, wake up, listen, look, this doesn't happen by accident. And so Jacob wakes up and he realizes this, and he is awestruck, and then it sort of gives him that courage, that sense of courage to continue on the journey. And I think often as we go through the struggles of life, knowing that we're not doing it alone, that we have that sense of God around us, that helps. That helps. So, Shabbat Shalom, and we'll continue on page 282. And we rise for Aleinu. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gdula liyotzeh breshit, shelo asanu kgoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishbechot adamam, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו. וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We think now of all those who have come before us, our ancestors, those on whose shoulders we stand. We are in the period of Shloshim for Shelley Kaplan, and we observe these yahrzeits on this Shabbat. Joseph Wolf, Meyer Landberg, Ida Harf, Jean Gusky, Soretta Rain, Gertrude Kaler, David Gottlieb, Ernie Petesha, Rachel Silverstein, Cecilia Tenenbaum, Francis Schuster, Edward Steinberg, Maxwell Emmerman, David Cooperman, Abraham Lechner, Isaac Frank, Abraham Adler, Joseph Levy, Nathan Cohn, Bertha Ewens, James Levinson, and Morris Blumberg. If you have other names that you would like to add, if you are participating via live stream, please add them into our chat box. If you would like to share a name and you are here in person, please share a name. And we join together on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divrach rutev yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach l'olam u'lalmet almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Please be seated. There are just a few announcements. First of all, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at our display in honor of Veterans Day, please do that. It's a wonderful, wonderful exhibit of artifacts and things from our local community and also from the National Jewish War Vets Association that produced some really interesting panels of Jewish service members over the years. This weekend services are in memory of Gertrude Kaler, Soretta Rain, and Morris Blumberg. And of course, we've got Gesher on Sunday in person, and Monday we have schmoozing with the president, and then we continue on through our week. So the display will be up today and tomorrow, and then we will close the display. And so if you are available and you'd like to come and see it, you can come by as long as you have had your fully vaccinated and you're all set for the COVID shots and things. And we're going to conclude this morning with Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Uyaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Give us a few minutes to reset the computer and technology, and we'll then begin Torah study. Thank you.
It's been a while since I've been actually.
You did great.
I mean, I like it. Anyhow.
Well, that figures.
Okay. Mom, can you speak?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm good. Everybody else is muted though.
Yeah, I have to change some of the settings.
You know, I'm pretty sure I saved it as a bookmark, but I always just go to
I used to
the.
have it as an app on my phone, but then I got a new phone with a bigger screen.
Yeah.
So I can read while I feed the baby, and now I don't think it's loaded. I think I might actually have to go to the website.
How old's the baby?
3.5 weeks.
Oh,
On
wow.
October 20th.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Look at you getting out so soon.
I was gonna actually try to come last Saturday, but it was Brad's birthday, so we were having a bunch of people descend on the house. and
Oh,
it just-
got it.
it just
Oh.
didn't get it. It just didn't get done.
How's the
So
baby doing?
he's doing well.
Good. Oh.
Yeah, he's been he's 3.5 weeks old.
Yeah, I know. What do they do but eat, sleep, and
He eats,
poop?
sleep, poops,
Yeah.
cries when he wants something.
Sometimes I miss the little baby days, like not the very beginning, like when you're tired and exhausted from birth, but like after that.
Yeah.
But because my youngest is 19 months and he's
Oh,
just,
that's soul baby.
yeah, but like he's in that I'm gonna climb on everything and jump stage, and that is so taxing because I
How many kiddos
also
do you have?
3. So I have a 2.5-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, and then I have a 7-year-old. I thought it was great. I was like, oh, I could be a stay-at-home parent. Like when I was pregnant and being in COVID, and I hadn't had my third yet. I was like, it's so easy because there's a big gap between my first 2. And then I had him. I was like, I need to get back to work. So, I'm tired.
This is our only, so I'm probably going to be.
Oh, we'll enjoy it.
I know, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
like,
it's exhausting
it's
though.
just
I always
not-
tell people it takes a while just to like get your body used to it. Like when people struggle in the beginning after birth, I'm like every single mom does, like every parent, every family. Yeah, it's not.
It's funny too. It's like, this sounds horrible. It's like, these were never really my shtick. I always did better
It's
with
a little
older-
late for that.
I know, no, but I always did better with older kids, like when you can like talk to them. and
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of, like,
Like
it's
3
They're
and
human.
4-year-olds
Yeah.
are my thing. Yeah.
And then it's like the baby, it's like, why
The
are you-
baby time goes by so fast.
I know it does, I know. It's like, why are you crying? I just gave
I was
you
thinking that about Leif
I
because he's 19 months and he's probably my last. So
I did not enjoy baby.
oh no, I don't enjoy
enjoyed the first
toddlers.
6 weeks and then weeks until they could like literally go to the bathroom on themselves and ask for what they wanted was
Yeah.
definitely.
I always
Mine were
say
difficult
mine is
parenting
like 1 year to like 3.5. Like they're so like mentally taxing for me that like, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
And my kids are both my youngest are in that age
and you
range,
have,
so.
you know, you've got the.
Odessa is wonderful.
And you have two
Yeah,
in the zone.
yeah. Leif sprained his foot.
All right.
Do you want this or you want? No, we're set. Thank you. Do you have one? Or you don't?
Oh, I use my phone.
All right. So let me find the text.
Well, my hair looks much
Everybody can
better
hear
on
okay?
camera now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was always like, oh.
We can
Before we
identify.
start-
differently.
Before we start, I have a burning question. Why were those angels going up the ladder
First,
first?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different possible answers. And the one that Rashi says is that the reality is that these angels are all around us all the time. And so they're always going up and down. We're just not aware of it.
Okay.
I had an explanation from Rabbi Goldstein, and she said that, I don't know which commentator made this, but she said all the angels have one job and only one job. They can't do more than one thing. That's their job and that's all they do. So some of them were to go up and some were to come down. So I don't know which commentator had that.
I
mean,
believe that everyone can become an angel, and first they should come to God, and God gonna give them message, and they go down and delivers that message.
Hmm.
Everyone can become an angel.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's a lot written on, I mean, not that, we don't spend a lot of time talking about it, actually. But there is quite a substantial amount written on angels and Jewish tradition and what that all means. So let's join in our blessing for study for those of you who are jumping in at this point. Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam asher
Kirisham b'mitzvah v'tziva sov divrei Torah. Amen.
Very good. Okay. And as I said at services, if you haven't had a chance to come and see the exhibit that we put together, it really is worth coming and seeing. You can see it tomorrow if you wish. And it's really cool. We have amazing artifacts from people in the congregation. It's really impressive. Okay. And I'll be taking pictures of it and putting it up on YouTube as a slideshow for everybody.
how long will it be up?
Till tomorrow.
Just till tomorrow. The pop-up model. Yeah, we didn't want to leave the stuff around too long, people's memorabilia and such and whatever. So we can't monitor it well. So we experience it and appreciate it, and then we take pictures and take it down. All right. So,
Rabbi,
yes.
can you change our screen so we can see who we're talking to?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
There we go.
I like that.
And you can, at home, you can pin a particular screen if you wish to do that. Yes, you can have the long table. You can have my ugly mug. You can.
Everybody.
Whatever you like. All right, so I believe we were chapter 5, right?
Yes.
All right, so first of all, just in general, what's your sense of the difference between this text and parts of Torah, or Torah as a whole?
My sense is a different writer, and also it's It's plain writing.
Right. It's not as religious. It's not as God-centered, even though God's mentioned. But
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. I mean, it definitely reads like a very different author.
right.
Right? It is far less complex, if you will. If that makes sense. It's a little bit simpler, and it's depending on the Torah for lots of allusion, right? It's almost as if you read it by itself, having not read the Torah, you would miss a tremendous amount of its intent.
Mhm.
Right? So it's, in that sense, it's a pure sequel.
Not a standalone.
Right. I mean, it's like most sequels. If you just see the sequel, you sort of get it, but you don't really get it. You know, unless of course it's Star Wars, which starts in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
That was, unique in the world. Okay, so yes, I think it's a very different author. I think that the style is very different. I think it's it uses different sort of connections, pieces to it, and it has different purposes to it, for sure, right? What it's trying to do is we're bridging, right? We're bridging from Torah into the next series in the next book, which is this whole the whole texts that are going to follow. So, chapter 5. When the kings of the Amorites on the western side of the Jordan and all the kings of the Canaanites near the sea heard how the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the sake of the Israelites until they crossed over, they lost heart. No spirit was left in them because of the Israelites. Okay.
That means the spirit was left in them.
Well, okay, so let's take a look at it, right? I mean, and the Hebrew is it's a pretty direct translation up until you get to the second to last line in the middle. V'lo hayavam, and it didn't come to them od again, ruach. They didn't have any more ruach.
Interesting.
Spirit.
So wait a minute, who are we talking that didn't have any more spirit?
The Amorites and the Canaanites and
So
they were demoralized.
okay.
If I were to paraphrase, right? They were demoralized.
Because we're coming into their space.
I think, first of all, the Israelites don't arrive without their reputation preceding them.
Okay.
Right? The reputation precedes them, and what do these kings? What do they see?
The wall of water.
Oh, no.
They see this divine miracle,
Oh, no.
and they're thinking, "Oh no, we're done." There's no. I mean, they've got the ability to stop the river. We are toast.
Could it have also been the size of the Israeli army?
Absolutely. It could have been the size. It could have been the perception. We have no idea, what it was, and maybe the text is sort of talking about this the fact that the water was stopped, but that could be just an allusion to the whole complex idea of these Israelites who have now crossed over the river and who are now clearly en masse invading, right? And they know what's happened, because word gets around. It's not a big geographic area, right? So we know that they probably knew what happened to the king of Moab, and we know what happened to some of the other folks that the Israelites encountered. And of course, what happened to all of those people is the Israelites, just destroyed them. And so these kings are pretty worried, right? And they're profoundly demoralized now. Okay. It's always a joy to mute my mother. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So the Israelites have crossed the river. God has done this miracle. Right? The miracle that happened at the sea when God split the sea was for whom?
Israelites.
All right. So the miracle is for the Israelites when God splits the sea after they leave Egypt. But clearly the miracle here with the river is not necessarily for the Israelites. We don't need that anymore. What's going on?
The power of stopping water to flow, it is very powerful. So everyone who hears it, even when water can stop flowing before they come over, so they have power, real power with them.
The miracle is for the ark. The river stops so that the priests can carry the ark across.
Well, or actually flip it around. It's the presence of the ark
stops the water.
That stops the water. Yeah.
But doesn't this also prove the continuity of command now that Moses is dead? That Joshua now is one to not perform miracles directly, but through God.
Right. If you compare it to the Moses miracle, right? So God splits the sea, but what's the catalyst for God splitting the sea with Moses?
To escape the Egyptians.
What's the catalyst? What starts what at least appears to start the sea being split?
Moses raising the staff.
Yeah. Right. Moses stands there with the staff in hand, and the sea splits. Right. So optically, who's splitting the sea? Moses. Right. Well, God learns a lot. Right. God learns a lot from that experience, because not only does Moses now have a different sense of who he is, because we see that later on when the people are complaining and they want water, and Moses says, okay, I'll get, you want water, I'm going to give you water. Fine. And hits the rock instead of talks to the rock, and that whole drama. But it's that sense that Moses now sort of in some way has this thought that it's actually his miracle, when of course it's not. And so I think God in some ways wants to be very clear with Joshua so that Joshua doesn't fall into the same trap.
Interesting.
And so it's not Joshua that leads, the priests, and it's multiple, right? The priests carrying the ark go into the river, and when they're standing there, then the water stops, right? So then what's clearly become the catalyst for the water stopping?
It's the ark.
Yeah.
And the ark represents
God.
Absolutely, God, right? So we're trying. I think God really is separating out and trying to use Joshua differently than Moses. Right. So on one hand, God wants to establish the fact that Joshua is the leader, and Joshua has. but Joshua also, he doesn't want Joshua to be deified in the same way that Moses was. Did you want to?
No, I was
Okay.
nodding in agreement.
Okay. And so this is this very powerful moment, and so the splitting of the sea is for the Israelites primarily. The water at the river is a convenience for the Israelites, but it's really a demonstration for everybody who's seeing them coming down the line here.
Interesting.
So at that time, Adonai said to Joshua, right? And it's interesting in that the phrase of Hebrew is very, very different, right? The whole, we're talking about different authors, right? Because this says, Be'et hahi Amar Adonai, which is so different than the classic biblical grammar, which would never have said this. Right? It would have said, Vayomer Adonai El Yeshua ben Nun. Right? That's how we would expect it to play out, right? Here, we can see that it's a completely different kind of style, right? This is casual Hebrew. This is not formal Hebrew.
It's as if somebody is present at all of this and reporting it, as opposed to God dictating it.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay. And depending on, what sort of religious perspective you have, you can either believe that God wrote down the whole text, everything from Genesis to, the end of the Bible, and handed it to Moses and whatever, or God wrote the Torah, or God wrote 10 Commandments, or whatever, but it's clear here that this is just a very different kind of text. Right? At that time, Be'etahi Amar Adonai El Yeshua. So God speaks to Joshua and says, Aseh lecha charvot. So and it's an odd thing. Make none and proceed with a second circumcision of the Israelites.
My translation has the hill of foreskins, which is an image I'm never going to be able to unsee.
Well,
Flashbacks, Eric?
I'm ruined.
it hurt so much you couldn't walk for a year.
Exactly.
Right, Carly? Yep. Carly has just survived the experience of a mom at a bris.
I almost basically assisted. Come on.
You did. You were good. I wasn't sure about Brad. I thought he was going to
I think he was wondering, would Carly miss that glass of wine on the table that's right next to the baby?
Uh-huh. Right? So what is going on here? Why in the world would God want, this doesn't make any sense, right?
But if you
I'd
read
rather-
on, it explains it. So
No, it is have sense because there is no circumcised left who was leave Egypt. So now they have to be circumcised and
Oh,
cleanse themselves.
They circumcised everybody when they left Egypt.
Yes, but no one left from those who left Egypt. It is only a couple people left alive. All others die in the desert.
I see. So Zipporah comes and with the Moses' two boys, and she initiates circumcision once again. Everybody gets circumcised out of as that population, and then they don't do it again until now. Is that what you're?
They wonder.
Well, that's what it says in the text, but my question is why? Since it was already known to be a commandment. Why weren't they circumcised?
They had to travel all the time. They was not know when they start traveling, when they stop, and how long they be at the stop. But after circumcision, you're supposed to recover.
Yeah, but they're 8 days old. They were supposed to do it at 8 days, so they were infants. So it's not like they were walking in the desert.
But they walking, they was not know how long it take to recover, and have a sick child carrying.
Look,
It is not simple.
It can't be practical. Like the answer just can't be a practical answer because they wait 30 days and after Miriam dies, they wait this, they wait for that, you know, and it's clear in the text that this is not a daily pick up and go, that they were in places for significant amounts of time.
But they was not know for how long they will be, because they had to start every time when fire or smoke move. They're supposed to start, so they had no idea how long they will stay and if they have enough time to recover. And because of that, I believe they had to.
So one of the answers could be the practical, they just didn't know when they needed to move. Good, that's one answer. Think of, you know, a more metaphoric answer of why this practice hadn't been happening.
I'm not sure.
It didn't earn the right. To, you know, to once again have the covenant.
The other thing is
That's why God was waiting for that generation to die.
no, but as they were born, wouldn't they have been circumcised? Or they had the era of Rav. Maybe they joined the Israelites and became Israel. I don't know.
No, there was not. They just. It is how I understand. At least they was not know how long they stay if they have enough time to recover.
Luba, that's one answer. And
Yeah,
I'm saying
don't
that's
know an answer.
one answer. But I want to put that over here on one side. And I want to think of if there are other, not necessarily technical or logistical reasons, but is there a spiritual reason or a philosophical reason why circumcision may not have happened? Sue, did you want to jump in?
Well, I was just going to say the reason they're doing it now, it reminds me of restating your marriage vows. It's a recommitment for everyone.
Yeah, it's a reaffirmation sort of thing.
Yeah.
I thought of that too. But then it would have been a symbolic circumcision, not because they would have been circumcised, right? So
Yeah.
that would make sense.
But it doesn't answer your question, which was why didn't they?
By the way, I don't have the answer to this. I have an answer to it. So just so you
They
know.
weren't a true nation. They were literally wandering. They were between homelands, and they were just maybe that commitment was missing, or
There's something that clearly went on, you know, that we're not sure, right? You know, I'd have to look at the commentaries around this thing and sort of figure out why, you know, what happened. I mean, if we have the texts in Exodus that says Zipporah, you know, and then everybody got circumcised, well, why wouldn't they have continued that?
Maybe as they traveled, they picked up groups of people who wanted to join them. Is that a possibility? I don't know.
I mean, there were certainly people who joined the community, but
I don't know. That's just...
yeah. So let's move on, see if we can, it'll come through in the text here a little bit. So Joshua had flint knives made, and the Israelites were circumcised at Gilbat Ha'aroth, which we don't really understand what that means, but it says the hill of foreskins. You know, The you know, it's like saying it's the view from Penis Mountain. I mean,
Coming to Disney next year. Yeah.
it's terrible. I mean, you know, but okay. Yeah, and again, the text is very, you know, it's Givat Ha'aralot.
When
Aral means circumcision, plural circumcisions, aralot, you know, and the givat, a givat is a mountain.
Mhm.
You know, like in you know, you have Givat Shaul and Givat Ze'ev, and you know, these are just mountain this, mountain that, all over Israel.
Was it just to symbolize like that's the place to do it? Like versus let's evil.
Right. So it now what you're saying really, if I can push it a little bit, is that in some ways they're probably retrojecting something into the text, right? They've got this place called, you know, Givat Ha'aralot, and they have to figure out, you know, well, that must be where Joshua and everybody circumcised themselves as soon as they crossed over into the land of Israel. Because why in the world else would you call this mountain the mountain of circumcision?
I'm going to go with your earlier explanation, which is this is not a very skilled writer who's doing a very quick summary. So in one paragraph or two paragraph, really one chapter, we're gonna take care of circumcision and the Passover offerings, right? Just like boom, let's get them over with. Here they are. They're important. I got to make sure they're included, and I'm not going to do it very skillfully. I'm just going to go on.
And why do you have to have those in there?
They are, I mean, off the top of my head, they are the reaffirmation of the, I mean, it's everything but the rainbow. It's the commitment of the covenant between the Israelites and God. God has saved them, and in exchange, we're going to circumcise. And
right. So you've got God saying, okay, I'm holding up my end of this covenant.
And you hold up your little end.
Where's the mute button? Where's the mute button? Okay, that's Eric's tip for the day.
But it's also an interesting commentary on the age, like they're saying 40 years, everyone perished who was in the military. So Moses lived to 120, yet these people are probably, 60-ish. If they were, initially in the military in their 20s and after 40 years old died. That's quite a commentary on the age span at the time.
Well, and we know that people in that time period certainly lived less than they do today, and it would make sense that Moses, being the extraordinary exception, lived to be 120, and yet
or Aaron,
right? So the exceptions, right, are double what everybody else is.
It is, I think it is say very clearly, and the Lord said to Joshua, today I have rolled away from you the disgrace of Egypt. I roll it away from you, the disgrace of Egypt. After they circumcised it, God rolled away.
So hold on, let's hold that, because we're not there in the text yet. You're reading ahead.
No, I think it is actually explain the meaning, spiritual meaning that you ask for. It is not just following, but spiritual strong meaning that God roll away disgrace.
Let's get there. Okay. So verse 4. This is the reason why Joshua had the circumcision performed. All the people who had come out of Egypt, all the males of military age had died during the desert wanderings after leaving Egypt. Now, whereas all the people who had come out of Egypt had been circumcised. None of the people born after the Exodus and during the desert wanderings had been circumcised. For the Israelites had traveled in the wilderness 40 years until the entire nation, the men of military age who had left Egypt, had perished because they had not obeyed the Lord, and the Lord had sworn never to let them see the land that the Lord had sworn to their fathers to assign to us, a land flowing with milk. Okay, so this is sort of recapping the idea that we had to wander around for 40 years as we developed ourselves into what it meant to be a people. Okay, good. So, you know, we had to earn that right to enter into the land of Israel. But he had raised up their sons in their stead, and it was these that Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised, not having been circumcised on the way. After the circumcising of the whole nation was completed, they remained where they were in camp until they recovered. Right, then God said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away from you the disgrace of Egypt." Vayomer Adonai el Yeshua, hayom galuti et hacharpat Mitzrayim. Hacharpat Mitzrayim is the stigma almost of Egypt. Right? So what's God really saying? You're not slaves anymore, folks.
Mhm.
Today is the first day of the rest of your lives.
Yes.
Fresh start.
Right? You're not slaves anymore. So it's time that you start behaving like Israelite people. And that means that you've got to start, using, doing circumcision and this and this and this and this. Right? And then Vayikra Shem Makom Hahu, and then so God calls on this particular place and names the place, right? So the place was called Gilgal, and it as it still is. Okay? And you can go, in Israel, you can go and visit Gilgal.
Where is that?
Sorry?
What does Gilgal mean?
Well, Gilgal is a wheel.
Okay.
So if you have a baby carriage, you have an agalah.
Oh, okay.
Or it also means a shopping cart. Same word. It's usually a thing with wheels, right? So there's this thing, a concept known as the Gilgal HaChaim, the wheel of life, that kind of goes around and around, and our souls work on this wheel, and we reuse that soul again and again, right?
Mhm.
Kind of like a Ferris wheel. It goes around, hits the bottom. That's living in the world, and then heads up again, and then our soul comes back into play as a different entity, and then goes back along the wheel, etc. But those are all, that's all part of it. Okay, and then it just drops it.
You just described very well described with this will. You describe the meaning of this circumcision. You very well describe it.
Possibly. Okay, and then we move right into Pesach. On the day after the Passover offering, on that very day, they ate of the produce of the country, unleavened bread and parched grain. On that same day, when they ate the produce of the land, the manna ceased. Right? End of the line. God is saying, I'm done. You're on your own.
Mhm.
We
No,
got you.
you come to the place you have to work for your bread.
Yes. We got you to the land of Israel. You're on your own. you have to now take care of your own food needs.
No, I don't think it is on your own. It is just you have as is told at the start of the Torah, you have to work for the food.
Right. So God's not saying you're settled down in the land of Canaan. You know, there we go here in verse 12, right? On that day, when they ate the produce of the land, the manna ceased. The Israelites got no more manna. That year they ate of the yield of the land of Canaan. Right? Another very clear ending and a new beginning, right? It's kind of like when your kid grows up and finally gets a job. And they say, what do you mean you're not paying my car insurance anymore? And you say, Mazel tov, you got a job.
What this doesn't say was, did they actually start planting the grain and harvesting it? Or did they eat grain that was already there? Or does
Sure.
that even matter?
We don't know.
We don't know.
I mean, they ate produce of the land, whatever, in whatever, yeah, however that happened.
It's dry green.
Okay. So now,
If this is the time for Pesach, do we know the time period when they arrived? Or when they crossed over the Jordan?
the time of the month, the time of the year,
The time of the year? I mean, were we even tracking year?
they probably were. I mean, they were certainly going by the schedule, the calendar of the whatever, but
Somehow they knew it was Pesach.
That's funny because it says if they ate the yield of the land, and that kind of does that sort of mean harvest time in the fall. I mean, I guess it could be a spring harvest.
we don't know, right? We don't know. And again, the stories conflate, right? I mean, you have a bunch of different things all happening together, and the authors are not particularly troubled with the fact that you have conflated a year's worth of events that happen at different points, and it doesn't really affect the fact that they don't ask the question, well, who planted the grain? You know, did the manna stop as soon as they crossed the river? Did it stop after they planted and they were able to harvest? What's the timeline there?
Yeah,
Right.
they had money and they start buying bread. Having.
Well, money is not a thing yet.
Who's saying there's no money?
No mono market?
Hmm?
No mono market?
More of that, they plunder this couple cities already, and they got spoiled, so they had some spoil, bread from spoil.
Well, but they say that they ate of the harvest of the land of Canaan. It doesn't say that they ate from the storerooms of the plundered city
From
of.
the land of Canaan.
But
Okay,
it's
is
kind of
that
encouraging, like fruits and nuts and whatever was in the spring.
no, the things they entered the land, and it is the bread growing, not by them, but those who was, and God now allowed them to plunder the land. So they use the bread of the inhabitants, because first it was forbidden when they start. It was forbidden to take anything. Everything supposed to be destroyed or given to God. And after them, God allowed them to plunder the cities. So they got what was in the cities for themselves. And after the day, on the day of Passover, they start using this.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't know the timeline, right? There's no indication there.
And how do they learn how to farm?
They didn't. They probably foraged. They dug up roots and nuts and stuff like
For
that.
hundreds of thousands of people.
Oh,
No, they had land. They had land that was in the plunger, couple cities, more than one city on that side, and they come and it is growing bread across the Jordan and growing fruits and whatever it is growing, and they plunger this because God allowed them to plunger.
Remember, you got 3 tribes who have already established themselves on the other side of the Jordan, saying, we're very happy over here. Our crops are doing well. Our animals are doing lovely. I think we're going to stay. Right. So they had some expertise. And, you know, they were in Egypt and they knew, and they were harvesting and growing and whatever. So it's not like farming was a new experience for them. I mean, farming was part of their bailiwick. They knew and they understood. Okay, so just press on a bit. So once when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing before him, drawn sword in hand. Joshua went up to him and said, are you one of us or our enemies? Right, which is sort of a bizarre kind of question. You would hope that Joshua might, you know, sort of know that.
they didn't have a password.
Is that an African swallow or a European swallow, you know?
Neat.
Right? So, and the guy says, no, I am captain of Adonai's army. Now I have come.
In my Torah, it is not ghosts, but the Lord of ghosts,
Host.
like one ghost.
Yeah, it's not a ghost, it's a host. It just means, yeah.
What this means?
So do the Hebrew, right? Do the Hebrew. Vayomer, and the man said, "Lo, no, ki ani sar tzava Adonai. I am the minister of the army of God."
Okay.
Okay, so new, what's the army of God?
Right.
An angel? That's what I was wondering, like an archangel or something.
Very possibly.
And is the vision human-like?
Say that again, Joel.
Does the captain of the army of God look like every other human? Is there anything that distinguishes him from other people?
He's obviously impressive because he's standing there as this big guy with a big sword.
Big sword.
The wings, right?
But he was able to see this guy, but he was not able to see the army. And this guy telling him that I have army from God.
Right.
And
So
now they're gonna help you.
Joshua sees this guy. He says, "Friend or foe?" And the guy responds with, "I'm in charge of God's army, and I've come now." And what does Joshua do?
Falls in his face.
Vayipol Yeshua el panav, he fell on his face. Atzah, right to the ground. Vayishtachu, and he prostrated himself. Vayomer lo, he said to the man, Ma Adoni, Ma Adoni midaber el avdo. Command me.
So he could have been one of the malachim, the angels, sort of thing.
Well, I mean, very right. So this is the picture that we're seeing, I think, is that Joshua is encountering the angel.
Sounds like it's a flash to Abraham and the 3 men that come to visit him.
Not exactly the angel. Does not say, and I think this is on purpose, not the angel. the being who represents himself so he can see him, but can be present without being seen. It is just being that come with the army to help him to occupy and live in the.
He
It is
appears
not
to Joshua as a man, right? And at first Joshua says friend or foe. He doesn't know.
Yeah, he saw him as a man, but later it is understood that this is not the messenger, it is different being. It is just, you can see him as a man, but he ruling over the army, over the God's army, and they present, but they present without the bodies, human bodies. They can show you,
She's got the ghost thing.
but they can be without, can be invisible, but they still are there.
Yeah, I mean, so keep going a little bit. Vayomer Tzava Adonai, and the minister of God's army said, El Yeshua, to Joshua, Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha. Take your shoes from your feet. Hi hamakom asher ata omed, because the place on which you stand, omed alav, kadosh hu, is sacred. V'ya'as Yeshua came, and Joshua did as he was told.
It's a flashback to Moses with the burning bush and take off your sandals.
Right? This is Joshua's burning bush,
Right.
Mhm.
right? What question does Moses have for the burning bush?
Who are you?
Right. Who are you? And what does God respond with?
I am who I
I am who I am.
I am who I am. And how does God appear to Moses?
In the shadow, the back of him.
But in what shape?
It's a shadow on the rock.
First is the burning bush, and then there's the conversation between Moses and God. And God appears to Moses in what form? As a person, right? God says to Moses, you can't see my face, but as I pass before you, I'm going to put my hand over your eyes. So he's got a face, he's got a hand, he's got a back. I mean, very clearly anthropomorphic images of God going on here with Moses, right? And this is exactly the same. Right? This is Joshua's burning bush.
The question
Again, a question, how was Joshua by himself? Here's the leader of the Israeli army. And here he is by himself confronting a possible foe with a very large man with a sword. How he didn't have an entourage or a guard with him. It seems a little bit.
The story
you don't
doesn't.
know, but you don't know if there's anybody. There might have been people with him. Didn't say he was
No,
alone.
the story doesn't work if he's not alone. Right? He needs to be alone in order for the story to work, because in the same way that Moses needed to be alone.
Hmm.
But again, it's that whole a series of parallels.
Mhm.
Question is, what is holy? Where is holy? They're outside of Jericho.
Yep. So what's making this place holy?
Yeah, I don't know.
God's
Well,
presence
We talked about it a little bit today, right? What's making this place holy?
of the people.
The people.
The people, and the fact that God's messenger is standing there.
Or he could mean this land is holy. This whole land is holy. But then, but he's saying take off your sandals because this spot is holy. So I don't know.
He doesn't say Eretz. He doesn't say land, right?
Right.
It's Makom.
So
This particular place. Why is this place holy? you're encountering God.
Mm.
And in places where you encounter God, that's what makes this thing holy. Right? We talked about that at services a little bit.
So that's why we don't know where that was. Like, we don't know where the burning bush was either, so, okay.
And again, you can pick up the text and go schlepping through Israel and find whatever you want, but that doesn't make it so.
Right. Interesting.
So
I look for the meaning of the word of ghost. It is
it's not it's not with a
could
G.
be translated as multitude. I am Lord of the multitude.
Well,
And
it,
in the same time, I'm the
Luba, stop. You're looking in English. The word in Hebrew is tzava, which is army.
multitude. It is army. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I just was not completely understood.
Okay.
And
Yeah. No, the Hebrew is pretty clear. It's army, and it's actually the same word that we still use today. So Israel's army is Tzahal, right? Tzava Haganah LeYisrael, the army of the defense of Israel.
okay.
So, okay, everybody, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.
What time on Monday speaking to the on Monday chatting with president? What time?
1 sec. It is 7 o'clock.
Evening, yes.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's in the email that got sent out on earlier this week.
Okay.
Okay.